I kind of got to slowly transition out of it, but I had to make a clear choice of like, this is what I'm doing. So when these great opportunities come up to audition for something, I had to say no. And it was so hard because if I didn't say no, then I wasn't really committing to my new path. And then I would have been in this constant cycle of like not really getting there, you know? So I had to kind of tell my ego no and like that this is okay. And I had to remind myself I've accomplished most of the goals I wanted to as a dancer and that it would always be a part of my life. It took me a second to realize that sometimes what you really love to do, it's not just about getting a job to do it. It's really just about finding those places where you can have that as an outlet. So that I had to kind of find, I think, through the first few years and realize that, you know, even today, I still deal with that a little bit because I'm still here and people have come and gone. And I'm like, oh no, I think what God wants me to do is mentor people, give them a landing spot. They can take off from here. And I'm choosing to be here. So I can't be sad when they leave. You know, reminding yourself of what your goal or intention was or what your mission and values are helps you get through those moments where it's like, oh, I really would rather do that right now.
Today's guest is Lora Pavilack, who was a Radio City Rockette in New York City for 9 years and appeared in numerous musicals around the world. What she loves about her entertainment career is that during her active entertainment and dance career, she remained injury-free and never missed a show. And she credits this to the attention she paid to posture and alignment. While still performing, she began her studies that would lead her to become a master teacher in the Pilates method through Pilates Sports Center, as well as certified in gyrotonic and gyrokinesis, the Franklin method, level 3, red cord, Da Vinci bodyboard, and other body balancing disciplines. She's the owner of Pilates Studio City for 20 years, and her and Nikki Alstetter are co-authors of Pain-Free Posture Handbook published in 2016. Her commitment to core principles continue to serve her well in other areas of her life, making her a better surfer, hiker, skier, partner, and mother to her 2 kiddos, Anderson and Lola. And last, she is a friend of mine. Of ours, but really, we danced together years ago. We actually did rehearsal in her studio space in Studio City, and last but not least, she is a friend of mine that I get to bring on today, and I'm just so excited to share who she is with you guys. So,
stay tuned.
Hey, my name is Kat,
and I'm Lee,
and welcome to the
Wildly Wealthy Life podcast. In this show, we explore the journey of what it means to live a truly exceptional and fulfilling life.
Each episode focuses on how a foundation of brilliant minds and brave hearts nurtured through the arts leads to lifelong success.
Get inspired with actionable tips to foster a growth mindset, leadership values, and creativity in children and adults, turning their potential into lasting contributions for their communities.
We hope that you embrace the challenge to shift your perspective as we equip you and the next generation for a
wildly wealthy life. Well, we just had an awesome meeting with Lora Pavilack, who shared a lot about how she does life, how she does business. And I think the biggest lesson for me is jumping with both feet, not to live in between 2 different worlds and making sure that the decisions that you make land you in one place.
Yeah. And what I love about her insight was her realization that creativity and business do go hand in hand together. She had this mindset years ago where she thought that, oh, dance is the artistry, that's the creative part. And then business it cannot be creative. And then she realized that that is not the case. And I love her journey with that, the process with that. And so we're just excited to bring her on. So let's go ahead and bring her on. I love that you have had a business for so many years. And I think, Laura, when I look at you, I look at someone who has just such amazing relationships. When I look at successful people, like in what they do, right? Like if they have their own businesses or like parenting or whatever that is, I always like sometimes see like, wow, what is it about them? And when I look at you, I feel like it's because of relationships. Like you have great relationships, and having great relationships is such a good support in whatever it is that you do in life. But if you were to kind of say something about that aside from relationships, what do you think has made your business last this long?
Well, I feel like for the past 20 years, because I've had my studio, my Pilates studio for 20 years this past April, I really think it's just my love of people. I really love people. And that does lead back to relationships. I think it's endurance. You have to go through a lot of ups and downs. I also think it's like having a goal. I set a goal for myself. And so I kind of stayed the course when it would have been easy to quit. And then I wanted to just keep inspiring my clients. And I love what I do. That helps when it's just like the daily grind sometimes. So, yeah.
What was your introduction to Pilates?
I bought a DVD as a starving broke dancer. And I was like, I'm going to try to work on my core. And I was like, wow, this is really great. And then I just started pursuing it at that point, and I think I got more and more interested in it as I started to take Pilates classes. And then when I got certified in 2002, I really just loved helping people understand about their body and feel better in their bodies. And that's when I realized, oh, this is something that I really like to do.
Yeah. Why do you think it's important that people understand, not just understand their body, but to really have a revelation that movement in general, right? Whether that's Pilates or hiking or whatever. Why do you think it's important for people to understand that movement in general is really important for us?
Just like we've been given the gift of this instrument, our body, and movement and understanding it and being a part of that is so important, because then it gives you, and like I just feel like you start to realize that we've been divinely created and we have this magic inside of us, but it's only going to work if we take care of it. And so we start to move and feel better. You start to make nice or healthier choices for yourself. And then that just kind of has this nice snowball effect of getting yourself into a better place in life, because then you can live out your passions, right? If your body's always hurting, which sometimes you don't have control over that, but you do have something to say in how you move your body, what you eat, and how you feel. I think you can be a part of that journey with yourself, and it's motivating. It helps you want to do more when you feel better.
Yeah.
And when you don't feel better, you're like, it's frustrating when you're injured or you don't feel good. So you can't do the things in your life that are most important when that's prioritized.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you were certified in 2002, how long was it? And maybe what was the process of getting the studio up and running? And maybe some of the motivations behind it. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure. I was certified. It usually takes like, maybe 6 months to a year to get certified, to get a certificate of completion in Pilates or a modality like that. Then I started teaching, and I was adding that into my, dance career. And I worked at a studio that was going to go out of business. And I was like, wow, I really like this. And I just thought it was sad that the business was going to close, and all these people who really came, their community was Pilates, part of their community. So they came for group classes and everything. So I had saved money, and then I just was like, hey, can I buy this studio from you? And it kind of came out of the blue for me. I was, what am I doing? And so I had this opportunity that came to me that was not planned for, not expected. I really didn't think I was going to open a studio when I got certified to do Pilates. And sometimes I think that happens. You kind of just keep going along, and then doors keep opening. And that's why you keep moving through them. And when they close, you need to turn and go into a different door, right? But I was really blessed and had this opportunity to buy a studio. And then that allowed me to kind of create my vision. It was thrown at me, and then I was like, okay, this is awesome. It's small, and I worked a lot to pay back the other part of the loan that I used to buy the studio. And so it was just all or nothing. I had to do that. And I got into it, and I saw that what my teaching was motivating me, but running a business was also really motivating and creative. And it kind of know that until I did it firsthand. I thought business is business and dancing is artistic, right? Like, and you can't be both. But I really, really saw that I could be both in that environment.
I love that. So I feel like what I'm hearing here is that action really creates clarity, because it's not like you had a plan, right, to like open a business, but you saw something, you kind of, instead of overthinking it, you just jumped into it. And then as you were doing it, more things, as you said, doors started to open. And again, probably just that act of being in action created the clarity that, oh, this is actually what I want to do. Regardless, though, it's still your first time, as you said before, it was dance versus, you didn't know that, you could actually mesh them together. So I'm gathering that this is actually your first time doing business at that time when you open it. So I'm sure there's a lot of like learning curves with learning how to actually run a business. What are some of the practical things that you feel you had to do early on in your business to really learn how to run a business? And how did creativity factor into that, or influence that?
Yeah. So I was jumping in without a lot of knowledge. I did get a arts management degree in college, so I had taken some business classes, and and I was like, all right, here goes. Although I'm not sure if all that applied or any of it, but I think what I ended up doing was asking a lot of questions and finding people who would help me in like-minded businesses. I know that, and that was scary because I thought I should know what I needed to do, but I really realized quickly that there's no way I could know because it's new, and it's but people out there want to help you. They want to help you. They want to support you. So I found people who wanted that for me, and as I came across challenges, I would go to people who were mentoring me and ask them what to do, and then a lot of times it was just trial by fire. It was like, well, that didn't work, so try this. It's like, let me try that again. And how to just deal with people by clients or other aspects of my business. I think I realized quickly I had to like step away, take a deep breath, maybe sleep on it, and then respond back with clients and everything. Because you always get a lot of, I think when you sleep on something, new perspectives come in and things like that. But creativity wise, I think it was just like also realizing that I could just do it my way, the way that I was inspired to do it. I didn't have to copy someone else's way. And sometimes that's scary because then you're going out on your own, right? So whether I advertised a little differently or just started a newsletter, just things that kind of fed into building a community versus just being very business based.
That's amazing. Now looking forward, right? Like you're 20 years in. If you were to look back, not just in opening a business, right? But actually in your childhood, if you can maybe pinpoint one or two mindset skill or leadership value that you feel, man, I really wish I knew this as a child, but nobody taught it to you as a child, that you feel like it could really have come in handy as an adult opening a business, what would that be?
So learning a mindset earlier on in my life that probably would have helped would be, well, the one thing I had to learn was that I needed to ask questions and not pretend to know everything. That people, I think being a perfectionist and more A-type personality, I really thought I should kind of know the answers, right? So I think I would have liked to know as a child that everything's a muscle, right? That you can improve things by practicing, and you're not just given what you know, like you're just smart or you're not smart. No, learning math, it's like it's a muscle, and as you're going to get better at it as you practice. Singing with your voice, it's a muscle. You could get better at that if you practice. And I always was like, well, I can't sing, but I could have if I'd gotten lessons and practiced that. And, so letting children know, or letting my earlier self know that, like, I didn't have to be perfect at it or really good. I could just enjoy learning something, and then that would lead to something new. But also you could get better at anything you work on, right? And sometimes I think I was programmed this way a little bit, which was what helped me is I just was a doer. I would task it out and get it done and follow through. And that process might have been helpful because I didn't give up. I guess I could say that like I wasn't like brilliant, but because I worked really hard, I got there. I got to what I needed to do for school and everything versus just already been given those gifts. I had to work at them.
It's so funny because we were just at church. Janine was actually speaking today at church, and
Janine Lutford.
yeah, I was like, you know Janine, right? I'm like, yeah, of course you know Janine. Audience, if you don't know her, look her up. She's got a bunch of videos on YouTube about brain and all that stuff. But she was basically just saying that nowadays they're seeing studies that the straight A students are actually the ones who are working for the B students, because the B students, they may not be like perfect in school, right? But those are the students who kind of like, well, I want to do things my way. And they're the ones that are like actually going out there and taking risks and putting stuff out because whatever they saw in school, they just didn't take it in and be like, well, this is what I was told to do. So I'll just regurgitate it exactly the way I was told to do things, right? So it's just incredible that you're kind of sharing that, because I just connected that to what I heard today. I'm like, oh, interesting. I love that. Yes. And as far as like going through COVID, right? Talking about how you bought someone's business that was about to close, right? And we know during COVID, there were a lot of businesses that closed down. And especially when it's an in-person business, right? And then it's a movement business. Like you actually have to be there physically to receive touch and instruction from your Pilates instructor. What was the first thing that I guess came to your mind when all of that happened? And how are you still here and able to pivot through that?
Lots of blessings from God above. Honestly, that's interesting because when this happened, I went right into like, how do I support my community? And that being, I had 19 people on payroll because they were teachers and staff, and then lots of clients. And we had an open studio with classes. And we had a studio that had private rooms. And I just was like, first of all, whoa, this is very crazy and unknown territory. But I went into my mode of like, okay, but we can still do Zooms. We immediately set up like kind of, I would say like just a support group for the teachers where I would bring in somebody who would teach them how to breathe, or we would have these meetings just to get together because it was the community and the like the personal daily activities that I think people really suffered from in COVID, where they couldn't go out and be with people, right? And not everybody had a built-in family or different things. They were in different places in their life. So I just wanted to quickly figure that out. And then we went into the work mode of like, how do we pay our bills and get the loans we need? And it was stressful. It was also a great time of slowing down and just having more space and being like, whoa, we are way out of control and busy. It's so busy. But like, I'm right back there now. I tried not to, but so I liked that we just took action. We just said, okay, we're going to go into this right away and not wait too long. I think that helped my business. And then I think also my goal was, I think people coming out of this pandemic are really going to need to be healthier, and they're going to need places like Pilates Studio City to move their bodies, because people who maybe were healthier, maybe did better. I mean, who knows, right, at this point? But I just really wanted to make it to the other side, right? So I downsized my business. Halfway through, I had to get out of I had 2 suites that I rented, so I talked the landlords into letting me get out of one of the leases so I could have just private spaces. And then that worked out, even though it cost some money. And then I work basically to pay the rent. And I taught my clients one-on-one, and they needed it because they were clients with polio or with a leg that was a titanium femur because it was bone cancer. So these are clients that needed it just to live their lives. And I just did that and was fortunate enough to not have to I just took a big pay cut and to pay the rent to get through it, and then made it to the other side. So, and now my studio is such a blessing because I don't have employees. I love people, but people also are a lot of work. So I don't manage people so much anymore, but they manage their own businesses and bring in clients and rent space. And then that just opened up so much more time for my family and for me, and I would never have happened. So there's also these crazy blessings that happen when things are just chaotic and you think, what am I going to do? If you hold on, maybe it shifts into a whole nother reality at the end. And that's kind of what happened for me. So
Yeah. With any business opportunity, there's always the opportunity cost as well. So you were at a stage where you're going out for dance auditions and performances and whatnot, and this was kind of dropped in front of you. Do you remember, did you go through any regret? Did you have to overcome any like old mindsets when you went from audition to, hey, here's a business, get started?
yes, that was hard. I mean, I kind of got to slowly transition out of it, but I had to make a clear choice of like, this is what I'm doing. So when these great opportunities come up to audition for something, I had to say no. And it was so hard because if I didn't say no, then I wasn't really committing to my new path. And then I would have been in this constant cycle of like not really getting there, you know? So I had to kind of tell my ego no and like that this is okay. And I had to remind myself I've accomplished most of the goals I wanted to as a dancer and that it would always be a part of my life. It took me a second to realize that sometimes what you really love to do, it's not just about getting a job to do it. It's really just about finding those places where you can have that as an outlet. So that I had to kind of find, I think, through the first few years and realize that, you know, even today, I still deal with that a little bit because I'm still here and people have come and gone. And I'm like, oh no, I think what God wants me to do is mentor people, give them a landing spot. They can take off from here. And I'm choosing to be here. So I can't be sad when they leave. Reminding yourself of what your goal or intention was or what your mission and values are helps you get through those moments where it's like, oh, I really would rather do that right now.
In the high moments, though, as you're working with these clients, like you mentioned somebody who had titanium femur from cancer, and like I'm sure you have a myriad of different stories you could tell of people coming in one condition and leaving you in another. But what were some of the initial like success stories that were the fuel to your fire? And when did you feel like this is your calling? Like this is what you were made to do?
Well, my very first fuel to the fire was my client, Fran, who was older, probably in her mid 60s. And she came in, I started working with her. And I remember her coming back to me and being like, thank you so much. I could stand up from the dinner table without kind of falling over. And I have so much more confidence. And she just felt so much better about herself. And it was as simple as just like getting out of a chair, right? And feeling supported in your body. And I just was like, wow, like I can help somebody feel that way. Like that's really cool. And so that was awesome for me. And then I just kept meeting people, and I guess part of my journey was really about continually learning, not just doing one certificate of completion for Pilates and then teaching that, because I would be so bored. So I just started taking, conferences and taking more workshops and getting different trainings like gyrotonic expansion system and the Franklin method, dynamic imagery and alignment system, and just continually learning because it's limitless, really, the body and what you can learn and do with it. The brain is limitless, so I think that has helped me with the longevity of teaching and that I still really like to do it. But my client who has the titanium femur, she was like, oh, the doctors are like, you'll just never have muscle there. But we have muscle there now, 10 years later,
That's
It's a long journey, but it's like she now is like teaching her mom the foam roller and doing like, she's like constantly like helping other people in her life, I think too. So I love seeing that, that's so.
Yeah. I just love that love for learning because I always had this saying a long time ago. I would say, nothing's boring in life. The only reason why it's boring is because you're boring. And what I mean by that is that when you stop having that love for learning, certain things are just going to get boring for you because you are no longer expanding, right? So I just want to draw attention to that's, like for you, having this business for a long time hasn't just been about pivoting as a business person, but also pivoting your brain and your heart, your mind, to learn new things so that not only can you challenge that curiosity in you, but you're also bringing all of these new learnings to your clients. So I love that. And I kind of want to go back to the thing when you said having to fully go in and just saying no to the ego of still wanting to book dance jobs, because that just gave me a flashback of like when I was starting to teach piano and I really love what I do. And then realizing that every day, like the first, few years, every day, Laura, I would be like, oh my gosh, I really hope that I don't get an audition call right now. I mean, I want to, but like it should come tomorrow because tomorrow I'm not teaching. So if there's an audition that comes up, it should be tomorrow. Like every day I was like in this little bit of a tiptoe feeling because I'm like, of course I want to say yes to an audition, but if it happens to be on a teaching day, I can't do that, and realizing that I'm still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And then it was all ego, like, because I still want to be out there on stage. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the realization that, like, well, yeah, but this is now the stage of my life that I really want to be in. And this is where I want to serve. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that's important for, listeners to hear that sometimes, even if it's a good thing, that chapter has to be closed so that you can fully go in to this thing that you feel are actually going to be serving more and more people. Going into that now, I want to talk about a little bit about motherhood and just kind of how does being a business owner, right, a creative business owner, contribute or affect the way you parent that may not have been the same if you're just, nothing wrong with a regular 9 to 5, right? But like if you are just clocking in, clocking out versus a actual business owner with, responsibilities that are far greater than clocking in, clocking out.
Well, I kind of think it's an amazing example for my kids. Like I'm really proud of my business. And I think what was great is for me personally, when I was working 12 to 14 hours at the studio to make it really happen, I didn't have kids at that point. And I was really able to invest that time. And now, well, one thing for sure is having children made me create boundaries that I had to create. And they're healthy, right? Because it's unhealthy to have everything about my business. Like that doesn't nurture my soul. That's not, and if it fails or something goes wrong, then, it's not my identity, right? So they gave me clear, like, you got to get home and you got to put everything down and pay attention to me. And then that helped me kind of, in a way, be a better business owner because I wasn't just saturated with it. It was like, okay, I have a break. I would be more inspired, I think, maybe, or just be refreshed is a better word, right? Because it wasn't just so much about one thing. And yeah, so I think it's also tricky because you are ultimately, at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. So if something happens, I do have to say like, hey, I got to take care of this, right? Because I need to do this. But it's my responsibility and I get to go to work. I like to say, instead I have to go to work. You get to go to school. It's a privilege, right? Very privileged and blessed. And sometimes just changing the word helps change that mindset too. Like, let's say it like this instead, right?
Yeah.
That helps mommy because it's not always easy. We we have to do some stuff that's hard and we have to stay the course, right? So yeah, but it's good. It's a good challenge to do your business and have children.
Yeah, I think that communication piece that you mentioned is really important, especially for the kids, because they 100%, I'm sure, just want to be mom's best friend for 24/7 and eat chocolate and ice cream all the time and just live their best life, but
Yes. Spoiled rotten. You have to be like, I'm actually doing work right now. Because why your phone's always with you and you could easily be doing social media or something else. I have to be clear. I also have to stop in my car before I get home and do my work so I can put it down so that I am not divided and not giving them also my attention when it's necessary.
I love that too, because that's a lesson in just, I think your things that are lining up in your life are from that both feet in. It seems like you don't like to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's all in, let's go. And with the kids too, like that's a beautiful thing, because that's very, very difficult as I'm not, obviously we're not parents, but with my nieces,
3 cats. So just kidding.
yeah, they're
I
fur
know.
babies. But just seeing like what my brother and his wife with their, at one point they had 5 kids, and just the shuttling, driving them around and trying to, have time for themselves and this, that, and the other. And they're just constantly kind of moving back and forth. And it's hard, but I think it's a very valuable lesson that you can show them, like, you are present, you are here, you are there to be there and support them and love them as they need.
Yeah. Laura, I want to ask also, this is really kind of like digging into, because, I, like Lee and I, we don't have kids. I mean, we've wanted kids. It's been a struggle, but you entering into motherhood at a later age, what were some of your limiting beliefs about that you've had to overcome? If you had any. Maybe you didn't have any, but
Sure, you kind of are. The expectation is you have kids a little bit younger and, you definitely probably have more energy. So that's a good thing, right? And I think for me, what I found is that because I had done a lot of what I really wanted to do in my life and lived it and like had time for myself, that I was really ready for motherhood at an older age. And that was great. And I was a little more established. And I also had learned so much that maybe I didn't pass along some of the stuff that I still do. I mess up my kids a lot, but I try not to. And I want to be more of a growth mindset. I love to learn about how to raise children and do it just with all the information out there. And there's a lot of great information, and weed through it and see what works for our family. But I think it's more like writing your own story. Like, you're just not going to be like anyone else. Everyone's so unique, right? And we just need to embrace that, like, I can only be my best self and I don't have to compare myself, and it's hard to do. But then, then you're living the life God meant you to live versus like trying to be like so-and-so and live up to this standard and all the standards we have in our lives and the comparisons. And it's hard, because we naturally go there in our minds, but we have to constantly be renewed and remember what we really are, how we were created to be. So
how are you navigating? That was really awesome. How are you navigating with Lola being in the dance world, right? I always have these conversations with some of my, friends like that are dance moms, right? And his dancing is amazing, right? I mean, you're a dancer, I'm a dancer, I love dancing, right? But when we were growing up, Laura, like, we didn't have social media. We didn't have YouTube that showed us, all of these dancers who are like technically crazy amazing, right? Like, I feel like the technique now of dancing is like so beyond like what it was in our time, So how are you navigating raising, Lola in an environment where dance can be so much about like how you look and how good you are, and you're celebrated if you're good, like in all these things, and if you're not that good, it's like, you're in the back, like all these ways. And then the comparison, and then the social media, and then what they see everywhere. How are you navigating all of that?
That is a very big challenge, I think, for parents these days, no matter what you're doing. Club soccer, dance, all the stuff. And I have to just be honest, like, Lola stepped out of dance this year as a 6th grader. She's not dancing anymore. I think because of all the things you just mentioned, to be real, like, there wasn't a place where you could just go and be in a dance community that was just dancing and maybe performing here and there. It was competitions, constant rehearsals. And unless you really, really love it and are, then she wanted out. And I had to grieve it a little bit as a
Mhm.
dancer because I was like, oh, I didn't want her to be a dancer. I just wanted her to love dance. And I think
Yeah.
she did love it while she was doing it. But she stood up and she said, Mom, I'm not going to do it. And I said, okay. Because I don't want her to do something she doesn't want to do. And I was really proud of her for coming to that moment and realizing I want to be outside. I want to try sports. I want to do these other things. And when I now look back on it, because this is fairly new, it was out of balance because it's too much, right? Like it's a little bit too much. Now, I'm not saying you can't be in that world and make it work, but you have to be intentional. And so I was like, ooh, was I intentional enough about creating balance? And was I sucked into like, no, she wants to do all the dances and we want to be a part of it all. And I probably was, right? Like 'cause I love it. And it was what I introduced in her life. But now she has to find new things for herself. And I'm really having to trust God in that because it's hard and it's new for me. And so here I am sitting at a new lunch table where I have to make new friends. And I want to go back to my old lunch table where everyone knows me. And so I'm like, don't we get past the lunch table at some point in our lives? But no, she's starting a new school. I have to meet new moms there and parents. And I'm like, ooh, I liked my elementary. Like, all the uncomfortable places we find ourselves continually through life, right? But then there's opportunity there. And I'm like, wow, I can learn about these whole new worlds and meet new people. I have to constantly switch my lunch table now. Come sit with me, but we want to go back to the same lunch table. That's what we do as humans, right?
It's Wednesdays. We wear pink, and if you're not wearing pink, you can't sit with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Oh wow. Laura, you just saying that is just wow, it's just really awesome because I mean, I'm not a mom, so like not even realizing that, like the stuff that you go through, right? It's like if your child changes interests, that means you also change your schedule, your way of doing things, and who you hang out with. That's it. That's incredible. Like that's a lot of always, shifting if they want to shift activities.
It is. And you kind of grieve it, but you have to really, she's not going to be me. I have to remember that. She's going to be her and she needs to have that time to explore. And so I'm grateful that she's doing that and, interesting, but it's good. It's good. It's like football and volleyball now. So you can ask me about that on the next segment.
That's great.
Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Laura, we want to be respectful of your time. So as a closing question from us, could you define what a wildly wealthy life means to you?
well, a wildly wealthy life means to me that there's abundance in your life. And that is like whether it's relationships are healthy and you have good relationships, you're doing what you love to do, which is such a gift. You're pursuing your passions. I think that is going to produce wealth and support for your life. It doesn't have to be a lot. I don't think wildly wealthy is like about money. I think it's more about like finding like just depth in what you're doing and passion and being able to impact others in a positive way and use your gifts that you were given. I think it's a beautiful. I just saw the Wild Robot movie and I don't know if you know that, but that robot just made her own way in the wilderness and found love. So finding the deeper meaning in life, I think is what the pursuit is versus the normal pursuits of like, I want to be comfortable. I want to have money, all these things, which aren't bad pursuits, but we don't want to lose sight of like, why are we here? It's to help others serve. It's to be impactful. And I think have intention, live intentional lives.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if people are looking for you, Laura, where can they find you?
I could be found on Instagram as Laura Colleen or at PSC Pilates for my studio and PilatesStudioCity.com. I'd love to hear from anybody or teach anybody or train anybody in different modalities. We do all that. So yeah.
And Laura, you do online lessons still for Pilates, or you're just in person? So just, because obviously listeners are probably from
We
everywhere.
are in person, but we do support some teachers who do online classes still. So we have that information for people. Yeah, as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. Laura, thank you so much. This was awesome. You were like earlier, like, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm like,
You're definitely here for a reason.
do you know why you're here? Because I just loved pulling out of all of those stories from you today. I think that, our podcast is really just about creativity, like mindset and leadership, and how that has evolved in your own life, but also like how do we apply it to the children in our lives, even if you're not a parent. Like for me, we're not parents, but like obviously I teach. So for me, it's always like, how do I nurture these things to the kids that are around me, even if, you're not a parent. So I think that you have done that very well in this recording, just to kind of share about your perspective on that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this platform. I love what you guys are doing. Always
Yay.
a supporter of you too.
Yes. Awesome. All right, friends, that's a wrap on today's episode of Wildly Wealthy Life. We hope you're feeling fired up and ready to take on the world with your brilliant mind and brave heart.
If you love this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. It helps us keep bringing you the good stuff.
And hey, while you're at it, drop us a rating or review. It takes 30 seconds, and it makes a huge difference for us.
Also, if you know someone who could use a little guidance on growth mindset, leadership, and creativity, share this episode with them. Sometimes that one conversation can spark up a whole new direction.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Go out there, live wildly, be wealthy in all the ways that matter to you, and we'll catch you on the next one.